Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is the Let's Talk Vibes podcast where we speak soul contracts, illuminating the path to higher understanding. I'm one of your hosts, Lauren.
And I'm Yiannah.
We are so excited to bring this dream into reality, to be bringing this podcast for you today. The name of the podcast is Let's Talk Vibes. So we're here to talk vibes, energy, frequency, and everything soul contracts. We hope you're ready to join us for this very lovely ride.
This is so exciting because while I consider myself a spiritual person my whole life, and I consider myself someone who loves, I can talk about spirit all day long. Once I found soul contracts and the system and how it works and what it means and how it shows up for you in your life, I'm like, all I ever want to do is talk about this. And now to be able to share it with like-minded people and people who are like just coming into it and like learning more about it. It's like, what a gift.
I feel you. I am obsessed with the system. It has changed the way that I see my life and that I see the world. I studied linguistics in college. I studied foreign languages. So I'm like, this is a language. This is a language for energy. And I want everyone to be able to speak this language.
Amen. I mean, as soul contract practitioners, right? Which is just one of the many hats that we wear. It's like
Mhm.
such a blessing to be able to be a part of this entire system and be able to share it with people. And really the way you kind of like start with it is you ask yourself, okay, well, what does this mean? How does it show
Yeah.
up for
What
people?
is a soul contract?
What is a soul contract, right? And a soul contract really is something that your soul chooses before you even incarnate. It's the frequencies that your soul wants to bring in, which is basically the map of your life, the main things it wants you to experience. And before we incarnate, we pick what we're going to look like, who our parents are, where we're going to live,
Mhm.
what journey we're going to be on. And through our name, we kind of put our roadmap together. And then we intuitively send that to our parents, mostly the mother, right? Because it seems like mothers are the ones who really make that name, that final naming decision. And it's funny because when you ask people, well, how did you come up with the name? And I'll
Mhm.
use myself as an example. I originally, me and my husband, we had no idea what we were going to call our daughter, right? There's like the traditional Greek, like you name the first daughter after your mother-in-law or your mother, like the family names.
Mhm.
But we wanted something different and we had no idea. And then somehow I was like, oh, I think it's going to be Penelope. And then halfway through my pregnancy, of course, I had to get him on board. He got on board. And all of a sudden, I was like, no, it's Olivia. It has to be Olivia. And he was like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, yes, 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 yes. I will get him on board. Her name is Olivia. Olivia hasn't existed in our lives. There's no family name of that, but it's just how it worked out. And knowing what I know now, her little soul was like, Mama, my name is Olivia. And I got it. And that's how she got her name. So
Yeah.
that's like how it works out.
And you do hear stories, right? Of this name came to me in a dream. Um, it sometimes comes to family members in dreams and be like, have you considered this name? And then the parents are like, I love that. Um, it also happens that sometimes parents, kind of like you were saying, for a certain amount of time, you were set on one thing and then it changes. Sometimes that happens like when the baby has been born. The entire time, they're like, the name is going to be Sarah. And then the baby isn't born and they're like, no, you're Christina. I don't know how I ever thought you were a
Right.
Sarah. I look at you and you're a Christina, and
Yes.
so it's like, again, this happens. It's like the soul is very clear and intentional on what their name is going to be because sound is creative and
Hmm.
the sounds of our names help to create our lives.
Yeah. And just another funny example. My girlfriend and her husband both they agreed on the name. And then when the child was born, they had this beautiful little girl, and the nurse came in and they said, well, what's her name? And they say the name, and the mother is spelling it out for the nurse, and the dad's like, wait a minute, it shouldn't be ON at the end. It should be AN at the end.
Mm.
And it was a conversation they never even had because each just assumed it was going to be spelled the way that they thought. And in the end, one of them won over the other, which then, now knowing what we know, changed some aspects of her birth chart, right? And
Yeah.
created the life that her soul wanted her to live. It's just like so cool how that works out.
Yeah. And you know what? Like Sarah was my almost name, and my parents had decided, it was going to be too popular. Jokes on them because Lauren was more popular in the name that I was born. But I look at that as like my almost name. Like I have looked up that chart and I have looked at, okay, how would that have been different? And also based off of really maybe what my life is and what I know about these numbers, why is that not the path that I chose? So sometimes in learning on what you didn't choose can give you great insights as well. I'm all about looking up what your almost name was. Like if you know what your name would have been if you were a different gender, or if you know you're one of these cases of right up until you were born, we had one thing in mind, or even these were the top two things we were considering, and it came down, your name is your name. Look at what those almost names are, because it can give you actually a lot of insight into your journey as well of what did your soul choose to learn, but also what did it choose not to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yes, what it chose to avoid. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Like I can
also,
see how that played out for some of my lifetimes. I'm like, I can see how that would have been really, really challenging in my life circumstances, and why they were like, nope, we're not
no
done.
thanks. We're not going to do that this lifetime.
Yeah, they're like, you think that name's too popular. Think of something else.
Right. Totally. I love that. Now, within your within your birth name and then the sound frequency that that brings in, it will show us the karmic elements that you chose to come in with. Those are the challenges you're going to experience, the things that are really going to shape you and your belief system from childhood moving on. It will also show us your talents, these gifts that you have to offer to the world. And those take a little bit of digging and a little bit of challenging and work to get to them, but they're like your gifts of service, if you will. And then it will show us your goals. What does your soul want to accomplish? What is it here to do? Whether that's in society or like on a career level. And then ultimately, it will show us your soul's destiny. What's this life about? What are you here to create or do or say or think or write? Right?
Yeah, it's an overarching life purpose and life goal. It's something for your whole life.
Yeah. Now, Lauren, do you want to tell us about a little bit of the history of the soul contract system?
Yeah. So the fact that you call it a system, I think it is important because today, many people who are listening are probably familiar with a general concept of soul contracts. This isn't a term that most people aren't familiar with, but the way that it's used when we say generally soul contracts, it's this idea that we make agreements with other souls before we incarnate, and we're going to play certain roles with each other. But I actually want to emphasize that that's not quite the soul contracts that we're talking about here. We are talking about a specific system and a specific modality, which was originally channeled in the 1980s by a man named Frank Alper. And I say originally channeled. This did exist here before, and it kind of is knowledge that was forgotten. And so when I say it was channeled in, it's sort of like he reintroduced it to the earth plane. And Frank Alper, he was channeling the soul of Moses. So the name that he gave this system was actually the spiritual numerology of Moses. This system is at its heart a numerology based system. And again, there can be confusion because there's something else. So there's another modality that exists in the world with numerology. I kind of think of that as numerology with a capital N. It also could be given a more specific name, which is Pythagorean numerology. And Pythagorean numerology is based off of Greek, ancient Greek, and the frequencies of Greek. They only use the numbers 1 through 9. They're going to calculate a very specific type of chart for you. So, where the system that we study, it's more similar to that in the sense that it is a modality under the umbrella of numerology,
Mhm.
and numerology meaning in the sense of the study of numbers. I would even say angel numbers are their own branch under the umbrella of numerology. Tarot kind of has its own interpretation and usages of numerology. So it's almost unfortunate that there is a modality known simply as numerology, because really numerology is a field of study and that is just one modality under the greater umbrella.
Mhm.
And so our teacher, who you and I both studied under, a man named Nicholas David Nunn, and he
Love you,
stud
Nicholas.
thank you, Nicholas, for everything you have taught us. He studied with Frank Alper in the 1990s. So he had come to the United States and he ended up finding Frank in Arizona and studied and learned the system under the name Spiritual Numerology of Moses. And Nicholas brought this system, he brought his learnings back with him to the UK. And I want to say it's around the 2000s that he gave it the name soul contracts, because there was another modality called numerology and he wanted to make it clear these are not the same. These are distinct systems and modalities. So he gave the system the new name, the soul contract. And Nicholas in 2014 went on to write the book Your Soul Contract Decoded, which I don't know about you if that's how you discovered the system. It's through his book that I discovered this system. And we can maybe at the end get a little bit more into how we each found it. So he has written this book. It's how probably many people who are listening may have had their own introduction to this system. It's how many people do discover the system. And again, I just want to speak a little bit again in terms of how this fits with other modalities. So it is again completely distinct from numerology, or Pythagorean numerology is how I will always describe it, either Pythagorean or traditional. It's also distinct from the more general conversation of soul contracts that you might hear about in an Akashic Records reading, where they like, you have this many soul contracts going on and you have the soul contract with this person. These are distinct. And this is its own system that is going to be more similar to, for example, astrology, in the sense that you're going to have a chart that you calculate, a birth chart, and that what those charts show you is potential. I'm a big believer in the future is not written in stone, that we have free will, that we make our own choices, but this is showing you potential, a lot of potential of what may arise in your life, but it's not dictating exactly how that all could manifest or unfold for you. We both will have same numbers in our own charts, you and I, Yiannah, and it manifests differently. We can have clients, we have the same numbers, it manifests differently. So
Mhm.
I'm never going to tell you this is exactly what you're going to live through and experience, but I can say, similar to astrology, they say, hey, based off of thousands of years of observation, these are some things that might happen for you, or these are some things to keep in mind. Here is some potential, right? This system hasn't been being observed for the last 2000 years, but in the same way, we can say this is what we have observed and this is what we can share. And then you help to teach me how has that shown up for you? Let's talk about your life. And then I, as the professional, can relate it back to the numbers.
Totally. And I think too, while a soul contract birth chart, right, just like your
Mhm.
natal chart in astrology, that is your own a specific journey, things you're going to experience, go through, have to learn and grow from. Okay. Also within that, within this system, we also get
Mhm.
to see your relationships and your soul contracts with other people in your life, whether
Mhm.
that's a partner, a parent, a child, a friend. We get to see how that all works out, right? And what I love about this system too, and makes it so easy to understand, I think for people who haven't even done the studying or the training in it, it includes astrology elements, right? So there's certain frequencies, for example, the 7-7 frequency is comes along with that Gemini energy,
Yeah.
right? And it also includes elements of the tarot, right? We also have like some Kabbalah elements. So there it draws from so much, and yet it's so specific to its own system, its own modality, and its own thing. And it's just like
Yeah.
the way it plays out is just amazing. Amazing.
Yes.
So
We
wait,
are
I do want to get into how did you get into soul contracts? And the reason I'm asking this for everyone listening is because Lauren and I met at level 3 training for
Yep.
soul contracts.
Hmm.
I think we probably spoke directly to each other, maybe 3 words, but there was
Yeah.
this crazy, like, I felt the energy from you. Like, there was a connection there. I appreciated you in the class. I loved having you in there. Like, your insight was beautiful. This was all like,
Yeah.
it had a business element to it. And
Yeah.
then we may have messaged once or twice afterwards, and everyone goes on their own merry way, and life gets busy. And then not too long ago, you randomly, I knew you and I were going to meet back up somehow. And then all of a sudden, I get this message, and the gist of the message is, "Hey, you want to do a Soul Contracts podcast?" And my quick response was, "Yeah, obviously, let's go." And it just manifested so quickly into this beautiful thing that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But to that point, we really don't know much about each other or how we got into soul contracts. So I want
Yeah.
to know that journey for you.
But I think you haven't even like, I mean, when we say we kind of met on this training, it's a 4-day training, but I actually was assisting because I had taken the training the day before. I was only assisting for 2 out of the 4 days. And on the one of the days that I was assisting, you were had a prior commitment. You were only there one of the days. So when you talk about like, oh, we barely even really spoke, I mean, yeah, like we didn't even really know each other. It's not like we've ever had a Zoom and I talked one on one prior to being like, let's do this. And now, how many times have we spoken since then? We're like each
Totally.
other's best friends and like
I am
talking all
married
the
to you.
time.
It's official. Like, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
We were almost each other's Valentine's Day dates, right? Very nearly.
Oh my
Um,
God. Okay,
yes.
so enough with enough embarrassing details. How did you get into soul contracts?
Okay, so I had my spiritual awakening in 2020, and I initially, like right away, I was having this like deja vu, and I was really feeling into the witchy vibes. And I was just like, you've done this before, you know, all of this. This is all within you, which actually, once you start getting into spirituality, that is a big message that is taught. And I just like inherently felt that right away. And so I did not go online for the longest time because I was just like, I'm skeptical. But when I did, I found this medium called Rebecca Rosen, and she, within her content, was talking about soul contracts and she's talking about exit points, and it's part of your soul contract, right? So, this is again the other way of using the word soul contract. Um, Kind of like what your exit points are, what your potential exit points were. And I was so curious. So I went onto Libby, basically into my library, and I typed in soul contracts, and there was Nicholas's book, Your Soul Contract Decoded. And I was just like, oh my God, yes. And like I mentioned, I studied linguistics in college. And so he's talking about phonetics, the sounds, and I'm like, I'm familiar with phonetics. And what is really interesting is like I did my chart by hand, and I clearly didn't pay clear enough attentions to the instructions, which is like just do your name as written, because I was all into the do your name phonetically, and I did, which means I didn't just do it as written. I changed that the for the creation of my chart. So for all intents and purposes, I actually did my chart wrong. And it's so interesting because there are a lot of, the numbers were correct, but maybe not in the right aspect to when I have my chart correct. But it's so interesting because there was the 11-2 in the physical talents rather than in the spiritual talents, which is in my quote unquote correct chart. And for a year, this is what I thought my chart was. And I had in my mind, what am I here to build? What am I here to build? I'm here to build something. What am I here to build? And I ended up like after a year creating this whole dream and this plan of this retreat center and all of the stuff that I would want to create down the line and having the vision of it and also having the insecurity, who's ever going to come to this, and it's build it and they will come and all of this stuff and being like, this is so what I'm meant to do. And then after that is when I was like, let me go back to the book again. And let me go on to this, let me go calculate my chart using the software. And I just put in my name. I didn't think about the phonetics. And so I got a chart and I was like, wait, this is different. And I share this story because so often we get caught up in what is right and what is wrong. And if I had found my right chart the first time, I never would have spent a year asking myself, what am I meant to build? And I absolutely think and believe I am meant to build. Maybe by the time I get there, what I desire to build will change. But this dream that I had, I think, is absolutely something I could still decide and currently do want to pursue. And I wouldn't have asked the question, I wouldn't have come up with this dream if I didn't have what was, again, quote unquote, the wrong information. And so this is just to say to anybody, don't get obsessed on getting it right, because sometimes if you get it wrong, you're still getting something you need to learn and that you need as part of your journey.
Well, here's the thing too. The important part of what you're saying is you still had that frequency in your chart, although it's in a
Mm-hmm.
different aspect. So even though it's in a different aspect, the general understanding and energy of those numbers are still at play in your life. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not that like you were randomly trying to make something work. It was in your energy field. It was something showing up for you, but now you understand it in a different perspective
Yep.
because the 11-2 in your, where'd you say it was you thought it was physical talents, but then it
But
was
it's actually a
spiritual
spiritual
talents.
talent.
So
Yeah.
you're here to build and share your own structure of truth.
Build my own philosophy. And I'm all
Love
about that,
it.
which actually later down the road, we want to start by teaching y'all about the soul contract system, but I'm really excited to bring in some of that philosophy. I have a lot of philosophy in my thoughts, that I feel like I have maybe a different perspective. And it's something that I think a lot of people may resonate with or maybe have been waiting to hear. So I'm excited as part of this journey to share that with you and to live that part of my chart.
Totally. And you know what's so great about that is we're two, it's not just you talking, it's not just your own show, it's not my just own show. Because we're here together, we have two completely different um ideas and insight on the same frequency, right? So it's like how a number we have in common has shown up for you will be different how it showed up for me, whether it's in the same aspect or not. So I love that because we really will get to deep dive into each number. And that's like so fun because you're like, oh my God, I totally get it. Yes, this six energy, the procrastination. Oh my God, yes, I totally get it. Right. Of course, I talk about the six a lot because I have it. I love it. It's so creative and it drives me at this point in my life where
Yeah.
I'm not so stuck as where I was before.
How did you find the system, Yana?
Oh, okay. Well, speaking of spirituality, 27 when I had my awakening. So for the last, not to date myself, for the last almost 14 years, I've loved just investing my time and energy into anything that will help me grow spiritually, that will help me understand better, something that feels right and true for me. And what happened was I was watching this podcast of this girl I love to follow. Her name is Nicole Frolick, and her podcast is, oh my gosh, I totally forgot the name of, oh, the Enlightened Up podcast. Great podcast.
Mm,
Okay. So she had a guest on, and the woman that was on was a soul contract practitioner. And I had not heard of this work before. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I'll listen to it. And they get into the episode about, what this entails and what it's about. And they pulled up Nicole's chart. And the practitioner just starts going boom, 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 boom. This is your life. This is what you experience. Here's what you're here to do. Here's how it's playing out for you. And Nicole was like, yep, yep. And I have chills right now talking about it. As I'm watching this, I'm like, oh my God, I need not to learn about it. I need to do this. It was very much like, this is your next thing, go do it. And I remember that night I ordered the book and it came the next day. Thank you, Amazon. And I did my chart and then I got pissed because I was like, what do you mean I procrastinate? And what do you mean I hold my emotions in my head and I don't process them? And what do you mean X, Y, and Z? I got mad at the things that were still trouble for me, right? things that still bothered me, that they were still very much in a karmic, they were showing up karmically for me. And I put it away for a little bit. And then, of course, I sat with it. And then I think it was very shortly after, maybe like a month, not even after, I started to view it like, okay, this is the hand that I was dealt. This is what was showing up for me to help me break out of that. Now, how can I use it to change and better my life? And then I don't even know how I got into the training. Somehow, of course, Spirit led me to Nicholas's trainings because I'm like, oh, I need book two. I need to read book two. So I went on
Yes.
the website and there is no book two for, his reason. He says it was too complex to put it in a
Yeah.
book format. You just have to do the training. And I was like, okay, done, click, paid for. I guess I'm signing up for it. And I've been obsessed ever since. It's wild. It's so wild, the
Yeah.
journey that it takes you on.
It's so interesting that you felt so drawn towards being a practitioner right away because that wasn't the case for me. This shows up in my chart. This is my soul destiny. I'm a forever student. I, like you, right away was like, where's book two? I want to learn more. But, I was also very interested in Pythagorean numerology and astrology. And I was like, I want to do all of these things. I want to creating my own kind of structure of truth, my own philosophy. I was like, I want to create a system that combines all of these things together, right? Living my 11 too. And I ended up doing a webinar with Nicholas where he ended up pulling up my chart, kind of giving me a little bit of a mini read.
Ooh, I love that.
Yes.
And
And while he was talking about he's like, it's great that you have these passions, but you need to pick one. You need to focus on something and you need to kind of build a reputation and build a career in that and just kind of have a focus and then it can expand out. And that was so hard because I was trying not to choose. But I took some time and I reflected. And really what it came down to for me was, hey, there's already so many astrologers out there. Does the world need another one? Another professional. I was like, oh my God. And then so I was kind of like, okay, it's between one of these numerology systems. And so I looked at Pythagorean numerology. And what I'd been doing at the time was I would message my friends and I'd be like, hey, I'm super into this system. Can I calculate your chart? I think it's super fun. I don't know all that much about it. So then I'll send you whatever your numbers are. I'm going to send you some videos about it so you can learn more. And I had friends who would say, yeah, go ahead. So I was doing that. And I realized I was like, this, this soul contract work there isn't just a YouTube video I can send to my friends. I can't just say, "Hey, can I calculate your chart?" Like I travel the world a lot. I am very happy like in a like hostel kind of kitchen dining room area. You're sitting with people from all over the world. You're chatting and it's like, "What am I going to do?" Be like, "Hey, can I calculate your chart?" And then I'm going to recommend that you order this book to your
right.
house for when you get home and you read it. Like no, it was that realization if you want to share this system because you love this system, you think it's great, you want to share with people, you're going to have to know what you're talking about because there isn't the resource to send. And when you know enough, you can start to create those resources. So when I say that this is a dream come true, before I ever took my first training, I was imagining creating the educational resources that I'd had access to. And this podcast is so part of it. And I'm just like, oh my God, finally. Oh my God, finally. There's something that if
Aww.
someone wants to learn, they don't just have to buy the book. They don't have to go and do the training. It's like you can listen to this and this can be the way that you learn more. So I'm so excited.
I love that. And now, for everyone listening, just so you know, by the time this is released, we will have on our website a way for you to at least get your free soul contract birth chart. And then within no time after that, we will have the access for you guys to get your like a summary report, right?
Yeah.
Which basically, instead of having to buy the book, here's your 85 pages of what your soul signed you up for, right? And
Yeah.
then you can dig in deeper if you like. You can get a reading from me or Lauren. I mean, the this is the type of work where we really hone in on like, what do you really want to accomplish? Like, what are the challenges you're facing and what do you want to know about your life? Like, what is that thing, that question that keeps you up at night? And then you take it and we can really hone in and see how that's playing out for you how to break through it, and how to get to where you want to go. Right. And that's like such the beauty of this system because, and there's resources, right? Okay, fine. I'm stuck in this karmic element. How do I break through that? We don't just say, this is your karma, have a good day. There's these resources on how to break through it, how to heal from it, how to get from point A to point Z in not 10, 15 years. But now we could do the work. We could put in the time to better ourselves. We could put in the time to get to where we want to get to. And there's actual steps to get there.
And for myself as well, I think because, again, my friend group will be on the younger side. It's not that we've spent,
Excuse me?
oh, I'm just saying, it's not that we've spent 40 years struggling with these lessons,
I did not
but
struggle for 40 years.
no, I'm just saying that really, like, one of the approaches that I really do take with a lot of clients that I've read with is we looking at the challenges, yes, but also really talking about what is on the other side. What is the gift and the talent that will be unlocked once you move through that? Because sometimes when you are, and I really mean it in the sense of when you're older, you've already done some of that unlocking. You know what I mean? You've
Hmm.
already done the transmuting and um transforming that into a talent. You've seen to some degree what's on the other side. You've maybe not done it for everything, but you see it to some aspect. And sometimes when you are younger, you haven't had enough time to work through it and you haven't started to see what can wait for you on the other side. So sometimes it's not as much about what are you facing, because I think for a lot of people that I have read for, it's like, I know what I'm facing. I know exactly what my challenge is. Why should I keep working on this? You know what I mean? What is waiting for me on the other side? So that's really an approach I like to take with my readings as well.
Totally. It's all the good stuff, you guys. It's
Yeah.
what we're here to do. Nobody's meant to stay stuck. Nobody's meant to stay in that karmic place. You're meant to grow. We're here, what is the soul contract? You create this life for yourself and then you incarnate. And then it's like your memory is just completely wiped clean and you're like, I don't know who I am. I'm just this little human being and I'm just living life and I wake up and I go to work and I come home and rinse and repeat, but it's like the whole point of this incarnation, of any incarnation, is to eventually find your way back to source. What are we here for? It's not just this earth plane physical stuff. There's just so much magic that happens every day. And it's like once you turn on to that, it's like, oh my God, life changes. Your perspective changes, your understanding changes, and everything becomes that much more easier and more attainable. And just like the joy in your life. It's like people say, I remember when I was younger, when I was in my teens, when I was 20, and I'd be like, oh my God, someone's 40. My God, they're so old. I don't want to be 40. I did not want to turn 25 because at 25, I thought I should have been married with like a kid, right? That
Yeah.
was my mentality when I was young.
Yeah.
And I will say, and I know this is huge attribution to my spiritual path, but every year just gets better and better. And yes, I am 40 and proud of it. And I can't wait for what's like to come because I know what it's like to have to do the work. I know what it's like to have to go through the work, through that dark night of the soul, right? We can talk about that too. And it's like every time you come out of that, you grow, you learn, you succeed, you just like the joy of it and just life keeps getting better. It just makes me so happy.
Yeah, well, there's going to be so much to jump into. We're so excited to start to introduce all of these beautiful numbers to you all. Like I said, for me, it changed the way I see the world, because now everything I view through the lens of these energies, of these frequencies. I'm like, oh, that's six energy, whether that's in my own life and someone else's life, and just kind of generally something going on. It just completely is the lens now through which I view the world.
I love it. Let's do this, girlfriend.
Yeah, so much more to come.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, literally episode one. Oh my God, this is so, I can't believe it. Again, I can't believe this is finally real, finally happening. I'm so excited.
Such a blessing for sure.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much for taking this little journey with us. Thank you for spending this time with us and allowing us to take the space in your life hopefully, where we help hopefully guide you in some way or give some more information to what this life's really all about.
Yeah. So find us over on Instagram. Let's Talk Vibes podcast. Let us know in the comments maybe what you're most excited to learn or what you already know about soul contracts. I always think of this as a modality nobody knows anything about. But if you're listening to episode 1, maybe you already know a little something. Let us know, what you don't know, what you're most excited to learn. And you can find us also at the ltvpodcast.com, especially if you'd like to get a reading or just get that free report that we will generate for you so that you can follow along. Highly recommend it because in the next 2 episodes, we're going to give you an introduction to all the numbers. So you want to know if that number is in your chart.
Yes. And as always, guys, please like, subscribe, share our podcast, tell all your friends about it. It's the best way to support us, and we appreciate it so much. And we can't wait to see you next.
Bye.
Bye.